Good evening, YouTube. I've got something that might be of interest to some people. We have a Cessna 172 on a sort of pre-purchase survey. Although we don't do a survey, we will give a quick opinion of the airplane. And this is not terrible. Somebody put a new propeller on it last year, and not because it was shock loaded or anything, because it was out of limits. 15-year-old engine with about 1,000 odd hours on it, with nothing terrible in its history, a clean filter, reasonable compressions, some nice shiny new hoses on it, quite a lot of shiny new bits on it, mags and harness, all very nice. But when you look a little bit deeper, well, as is often the case, the kind of depth maintenance, if you like, not always needs some bringing up to speed, let's say. I mean, I looked at this exhaust. Somebody said, oh, there's a hole in the exhaust there, and yeah, there is. And these stack pipes don't generally just rot out. That's been neglected for a while, and if we look at the end of it inside the clamp, it's kind of seen better days. That should actually fit inside this hole here. Look at them rusty bolts on the other bit. It hasn't been apart and looked at for years, and it needs to come apart because this bit we're looking into now is the cabin heat exchanger, and if you get a hole or a leak in that, you got carbon monoxide inside the cabin when you operate the heater. And even these bits, external bits which blow occasionally, don't really want to be leaking too badly because they're close to the heater ducts and bits. It needs proper maintenance on the exhaust system. Simple as that, really. And it looks like it's lacking a bit in that department. I've had to narrate over this video because it's raining so heavily in the hangar you can't hear the sound. I did have a bit of 1¼ pipe, but I cut a bit of pipe down and just put a little seam inside it there. And we're over at the lathe. A few videos back I did a video called Bead Maker Flange Wanger Thingy, where we made a little device that runs in the lathe to put beads on tubing. So that's how it works. I only just turn the chuck by hand. You press it with a wheel in the tool post and rotate it and you end up with a bead. So we've done that. And it's looking okay. With a bit of jiggery pokery, we ended up with a nice snug fit in there. Okay, which is what we're looking for. Now I think to weld this to the end of the existing stack pipe would be an okay temporary repair. We're going to recommend, I can see all the stack pipes look shady, recommend that all 4 are replaced. But this is going to get him airworthy. Maybe the new owner can go and play with his new toy while we wait for the bits and 1 or 2 other bits that want doing. I think I'm going to try and bring back the original sound now because the storm has stopped and you might be able to hear me talking, so might be a bit disjointed, sorry about that, but it should be fine. Yeah, heating hoses and ducts, and if it leaks you risk carbon monoxide coming inside the cabin to get you, so it's a little more important than that. And there's some other things I noticed around this airplane. There should be a strap across here from the alternator to the starter and a little cowl snubber. They call it a cowl snubber, which stops the cowling from riding up. That's missing. I guess it was lost at some point when the starter was changed or the alternator was off, I don't know, but you would think somebody would realise that. Can I get in there with the phone to see it? You see there's an enormous stack of washers on that bolt. Somebody obviously had to go and get a load of washers there so that the bolt didn't shank out. Did it not occur to them that the reason they suddenly need washers is because there's a bit missing? I don't know. It's just one of those things, the attention to detail and care. We often see it's just lacking. And is it because, you know, Maintenance is expensive. There's often pressure from owners to get things turned around competitively. I don't know, there's just so often good intentions with lack of care, experience, detail. I don't know. It's, people say, oh God, we're expensive. Aircraft maintenance here is expensive. Well, I'm quite happy to be expensive if we're just paying attention to the details. If people don't like that, they can go somewhere cheaper. Okay, we've got another 172 in the hangar. The Storm is back, so I'm talking over again. This is the cowl snubber that should be between the alternator and starter. Its purpose is to stop the cowling riding up in flight. And this exhaust system, similar, so identical model, actually been put back with new hardware after inspection every annual. Alright, it's not perfect, but I think this engine installation for similar age and hours looks a little bit tidier generally and more thoroughly inspected than the other one. Okay, we're back at the other one now, and yeah, I mean, it does look a bit tired, certainly in the exhaust department by comparison. I think, looking at this and looking from the inside, we're going to recommend replacement of all of these stacks and a good look at the muffler. Certainly before the winter comes and he wants to use the heater. Meanwhile, I think we can do an airworthy repair in accordance with something to this stack, which was actually holed. The question was, can you just blob a bit of weld on it? Well, not really. We've got to put a name to this. Now let's take a look at this missing snubber, the effect that has had. We need to wander over to cowling corner and find the cowl. The cowling, that's purpose of that snubber is to push on a rubber pad inside this cowling and prevent it from riding up in flight. Well, it has ridden up, and you can see the alternator fan is just beginning to saw through this nice LED landing lamp. Again, and it's also been rubbing on the structure. There's some rust. That's the rubber pad that's supposed to push on the snubber, which is halfway chafed to nothing. Again, it's all right. It's not the end of the world, but it's not right. You know, you could get a short or an alternator belt, I think, rubs on the structure just ahead of that, and yeah, you know, you get away with some of these things, generally speaking. But if you have a big electrical short, it might not happen on a nice sunny day when you can turn the master off and land. It might happen when you're 2 hours over water at night and you need all the electrical power you've got. And I don't know what happens. People spend money, these fancy LEDs, there's probably £500 worth there of landing lamps. But when it comes to spending money on the annual checks and the depth maintenance, occasionally you sort of meet this resistance. Maybe it's because it's not explained to people properly what goes on during an annual inspection, how important it all is. Maybe it just isn't well understood. Maybe it's just the way it is. I can't really explain it. As I say, we don't do stuff on the cheap or under pressure where we can avoid it. Having ranted for long enough, I better get this thing back together carefully without making a mistake myself that's going to cause an incident. And so when we get welding on this, I got to get, this is the remains of the old flange. This is the bit that should be inside the clamp. I've got to get this length and angle reasonably accurate. It's getting towards the bend here. I think I ideally want to cut it just behind this weld and shorten this bit to match. I think it might require a trial fit or two. I'm going to cut through here just behind this weld, and we'll fettle this bit to make it fit nicely at a right angle. If I don't get this end quite right, the trouble is it's going to pull on this flange at the top here, which is already a little bit did on one side. Yeah. Alright, we'll give that some thought. I think we'll get there. Alright, I'm getting ready to weld this end here. I've been bead blasting and scrubbing at it. You can see this oxide film gets really thick. Got through it there, I haven't quite got through it there yet. It's like a very thick mill scale, but it needs to come off to have a pretty looking weld, so yeah, carry on with that for a little while till we get it clean. Right, so I'm getting ready to weld. I got my purge line in the top there. I've got some copper wrapped up inside there. I've got an aluminium block clamping it there just to try and sink the heat where I can. I haven't got the perfect fit up, but I'm pretty close most of the way around there. So we're going to weld around here, take this end up, get it purged out, and see how we go. I'd like to just close this gap up a little here if I could, maybe possible. We'll get a bead of weld around it. But if you're into welding, watch Jody at Welding Tips and Tricks. It's a great channel. I'm trying to make him proud here, getting comfortable, taking some dry runs, and keeping my torch pointed at the center of the pipe. I'm not going to weld too far at a time. I'm just going to be really comfortable. Thin stainless, you got to be comfortable. Didn't get quite the crisp start I would have liked there. Try and get moving fairly quickly, and don't be afraid to step out far when that heat builds up and just get going. It's not too bad. My body's moving. I'll make a pipe welder yet. Only if I was a pipe welder I'd try and go all the way around and get under it in one go, but practice makes perfect. Alright, let's see if I can get you a shot of that. Ooh. In place, there's a weld. It's not the most beautiful Instagrammable weld. It's okay. There's our two little flanges that I clamp onto. Let's just see if I can pull that out. There we go. Fits snugly, I think, inside there. I think when it's tightened up, I think my flange is fairly straight. We'll put a new gasket on there. As I say, it's not a beautiful, beautiful thing. It is an adequate repair until we get some new stacks. You can see this blow here, which probably to me indicates that the joint inside that clamp is not very good. It's leaking out the clamp. You always get a little bit, but I think there's more than I like to see on this one. It's just generally a bit scrappy and rusty. I think, however, it is airworthy for, you know, flights until we get the new bits. There's a few hours invested in this, but it's nothing like the cost of a new part. And there's a lead time on the new bits. They're not in stock in the UK, so let's just pull that out again. While we're at it, let's have a. I should get my little mirror there. Let's have a look down the inside.